does. And they're underway now. So this is Shovel Knight low percent, which means that our runners can't pick up anything that adds to the completion percentage at the end of the game. So they're going to be avoiding any like health, magic upgrades, shovel or armor upgrades, and also the music sheets that are the collectibles throughout each level. So this first level plains, there's not a ton to it, but there are a few kind of difficult tricks near the end that our runners will have to deal with, as well as the Leap of Faith, which is going to be coming up in just one room from here. It's a somewhat tight jump to get across this platform, but both runners manage it no problem. Just a little test of their pre-race nerves there, if anything. And yeah, so in some ways it's nice and low percent. You don't have to worry about any money or breaking checkpoints or anything like that. But of course, having only the shovel to deal with does make it a bit harder in the later stages to navigate. So one tool our runners will be using is shovel canceling here, which they are jumping after swinging the shovel on the ground to get through those dirt blocks as quickly as possible. Oh. Let's see. Yeah, and now our runners are coming up on Bubble Wrap, which they're going to use those bubbles to get high up when they trigger the screen transition in order to wrap around to a screen above. So now we reach the first boss of the game, Black Knight 1. Both our runners are just going to be attempting to pin him in the corner with this stun lock using that shovel canceling technique again. And they both get it no problem. So now the next stage is going to be Pridemore Keep. It looks like we're very even so far getting through the first level. And Pridemore Keep is just another kind of intro level with, again, just a few tricks to master and a somewhat technical boss kill as well. So Muncha coming up on the gentle hop. He doesn't quite get it. Neither does David. They're trying to both jump up to that middle platform in the next room, but neither quite able to pull it off. But it's only a small time loss, no big deal. And now it looks like Muncha's been able to take the lead by about a screen here, just a few seconds, moving through the first couple stages. And David actually breaking that checkpoint as he goes by. It shouldn't be an issue because it is so early in the run and there's one fairly close by. But of course, if you break a checkpoint and then die somewhere after it, you go back to the previous checkpoint that you activated. So typically you don't see that in low percent. Not really an issue there, though. And one of the most annoying enemies in Pridemore are these propeller rats that can fly around in a somewhat random pattern, which can make them a little hard to react to. They're going to come back in some later stages and cause even more trouble, but for here it's not too bad. Now we'll see what strat Muncha does for the book room. It looks like he's going for the fast strat, So if all goes right, which it doesn't, he gets messed up by the rat a little bit. Oh, but he's still able to pull off the damage boost at the end. Very nice from Muncha there. And now both runners approaching the King Knight fight. It can be a difficult fight to learn, but Muncha and probably David as well have plenty of experience to be able to take him down quickly. That's a very clean fight from Muncha. David getting hit in the middle of the fight and getting stuck on the ground there. So he's going to fall a little bit more behind, but still certainly within striking distance. There's plenty that can happen in low percent. Okay, so next up is Chard. The main annoyance in this stage is the frog enemies, which are going to jump around in at a somewhat random height and timing. So you just have to react to whatever pattern they give you in a few of these rooms. They'll also have to navigate a few rooms that are pretty much completely dark aside from some flashes of lightning. But both these runners have played the game plenty of times to know where everything is, of course, in those rooms. Now, get skipped from Muncha using that frog to pogo his way up to the top platform and into the next room without having to use the moving platform. David gets the same skip as well, just a little bit behind. Now we're coming up to one of the dark rooms. This one isn't too bad, but the real challenging one is right before the boss fight at the end of this stage. This room that Muncha is in now can be a pain as well. You see that frog on the top giving him a little bit of trouble as he's trying to move the skull over to the sinking platform. And we'll see if he decides to take health at this spot in the stage where it's pretty easy to grab. He does go for it just to be a little bit safe for the Spectre fight and the rest of the stage. David opting to skip it, so we'll see if that pays off for him, if he can avoid healing later on as well. Now this is the room I was talking about before. Muncha taking a damage boost off the very first frog to get through the frog section a little bit easier. And now you have to navigate these moving platforms in the dark. And Muncha gets through just fine. We'll see what David's able to do. And he gets through as well, no problem for either runner. So now the Spectre Knight fight is a little bit random. His first teleport is fixed. If he always goes to the corner opposite diagonal from the one that he's floating in. So you saw that there, and now it's random which corner he teleports to the second time. Gives Muncha good RNG, so he's able to finish him off at the bottom of the screen. And David gets good RNG as well, so no discrepancy there. It's a very fair Spectre fight, this particular run. And it's still very close as these runners are going to approach the first dream sequence, where the goal is just to die as quickly as possible to trigger Shield Knight falling. And of course, and here the way you die as quickly as possible is by jumping into these skeletons when they have their swords raised. That'll do a full heart of damage, killing Shovel Knight in 4 hits. So a very nice first dream from Muncha. He'll be on his way to Explodatorium next, as will David right behind him. Now in Explodatorium, they'll have to, of course, try to get through as quickly as possible, but it's a little more important here because several of the obstacles are on global cycles. So they start firing once the stage starts, and what cycle you get is determined purely by how fast you go through the rest of the stage before it. So both runners looking good so far, getting through the first few screens. It does look like Munch is going to get the best starting cycle for this stage. This run will take about 50 minutes, I would say. Maybe a little less if both these runners' PBs are a bit under 50 minutes. Munch is a little more under. So somewhere in the 50-minute range. Yeah, very nice Explodatorium so far on both sides. With David having a little bit of difficulty, does take a hit in that room, but he gets through just fine, making his way to the Alchemeister mini-boss, as Muncha is just finishing that fight up. You can see the strat to just get behind him and shovel him as much as possible. Try to reflect his potions back at him if you can. Now Munch is going to be going for a ladder skip using this fairy. Oh, to get high enough up to grab the ladder off screen, and he pulls it off eventually. Oh, but David taking a death trying to do the ladder skip, so that's going to set him back just to the start of that room. That's going to give Muncha a little bit more of a lead. And no problem on the second try for David doing that ladder skip. As Muncha heads over to the Plague Knight fight, this is another pretty random boss. He'll jump around, do typically 1, 2, or 3 jumps, and you pretty much want him to jump as little as possible. So, pretty decent pattern for Muncha so far. He's a little bit low on health. We'll see how he's able to manage. Oh, now he's only got 1 hit left. Oh no, and he takes the death to Plague Knight. That's going to put them just about even here. And of course there is that checkpoint right before the boss, but that's going to set him back quite a bit and allow David to catch up pretty much entirely. So it could come down to Plague RNG, who takes the lead here in Explodatorium. Looks like David is going to kill Plague Knight first. And Muncha getting a few bad jumps from Plague Knight and a teleport. But he does finish him off as well. So now it's David in the lead, moving into Iron Whale. And of course, still plenty of run left, but that's how quickly things can change up in this run. Just 1 death can sometimes be enough to switch the lead. So here, the runners will have to navigate the water physics. There isn't a whole lot to them. You really just jump higher and fall more slowly. It's just a matter of figuring out how high your jump will take you in the water. But there are a few difficult tricks in this stage. I'm interested to see what these two are going to attempt. David is going to be coming up on the tentacle room skip where you can... Yeah, there you go. He pogos that second tentacle that shoots out from the wall, and that allows him to skip going around in that room. Muncha using a slightly different setup but getting the same result. And now they're both going to be entering the Tithalon fight. There's a bit of an auto-scroller, and then you have to hit the chest that's currently closed, coming out from Tithalon's head 12 times in order to kill him. So if you get the hits in really optimally, you can kill him in one cycle before he dashes over to the other side. Oh, David almost taking a death. If he does survive, I think he'll be happy to just not have to redo that auto-scroller, even though he didn't get the one cycle. And Muncha doesn't get it either. He will catch up just a tiny bit by not taking that health after the mini-boss. Oh, and David potentially in some trouble, does get through that room with the purple Duck Knight. And now we'll see what he goes for in the anchor room. He's actually going to take the checkpoint. Not a bad decision. You don't usually see that, but certainly it's a good safety move for this run, because this second anchor skip can very easily kill you if you mess up the jump timing. Now he's going to take health before the Treasure Knight fight, which will actually allow Muncha to take a very slim lead. But he definitely wants the health, because Treasure can eat up your health very quickly. His anchor attacks do a full heart of damage, and most of his attacks do involve the anchor, so you can take a lot of damage very quickly in this fight. We see Muncha in a little bit of trouble here. Just pogoing Treasure Knight in the corner as he's getting sucked in towards that chest in the middle. But does manage to get the kill a little bit after David did. And both actually coming pretty close to death, but both fortunately surviving. So now in Lost City, the next stage coming up, there are going to be two sort of auto-scroller segments where you're supposed to ride a large beetle through to the end of the screen, but we can actually skip both of those, even in low percent, with only the shovel. So we'll see what these two are able to pull off. David's setting up the first beetle skip. He's going to use this birder that's in the cage right now to get across a gap at the very end of this screen. Muncha, of course, doing the same. And he gets the pogo, no problem. Muncha going, it looked like maybe a little too fast for the birder, but able to slow down and get the skip just fine as well. So it's still a very close race. Only a few seconds separating these runners at this point. Oh, but David walks in lava there. So it's not a very big death again, but right now, you know, these runners are needing really any edge they can get, so that's going to help Muncha out a little bit more, although he's still not that far ahead. Really practically even at this point. I mean, if you're going to take a death, that is probably the best death to take anywhere in the run. where David died. It's about as close to the checkpoint as you can get. So now Muncha is entering the second beetle room. There's another, I think, harder skip in this room. It's a similar concept, using the birders to cross a gap that you otherwise wouldn't be able to jump across. First one right here. Oh, Muncha just getting under those droplets. Very quick beetle skip. Looks like David's got a pretty good setup if he can make it, and he does as well. So it's still very even going into the Mole Knight fight. Both runners should have plenty of health for this one. David a little bit lower than Muncha is. But unlike some of the randomness we saw with Spectre, Plague, and Treasure, Mole Knight is pretty predictable. So a little bit easier to take down the previous few bosses. And both getting that kill no problem. So now the second dream sequence is a little interesting because in addition to dying as quickly as possible, you also want to try to catch Shield Knight in the air. So you take a death high up, and as you're falling, catch Shield Knight while she's dropping down, and that will end the dream early and also cause you to just slide out of the dream instead of having to get up and walk out. You'll see what I mean if one of these runners gets it. Looks like Muncha did. That's a pretty good time save over waiting to exit the dream normally. It's maybe 4 or 5 seconds, but we're at the point right now where every time save like that counts. Now this is where the restriction of having only the shovel is going to start making the platforming quite a bit more difficult. The latter half of the game definitely becomes harder when you don't have any extra relics or anything to help you get around. But Stranded Ship, actually one of my favorite levels personally. It's definitely a difficult level to execute well, but it's very much in your control. There aren't a lot of random elements to it. So, if you put the practice in, you can get consistent at it and get these tricks almost every time. And so far, both runners doing a good job navigating the first part of Stranded Ship. It is Muncha in the lead now by a few screens. But in this stage also, if you die, you tend to get set pretty far back, so that could open up the lead one way or another very quickly if we see a death in this stage. And David may be having a little bit of trouble navigating with that statue that spits out the rainbow platform, but he does get through that room without actually taking any damage. Which is another thing you want to look out for in Stranded Ship, is how much damage you take, because there are a few spots where you want to damage boost off enemies. And ideally you want to have enough health left going into the Polar Knight fight that you don't have to heal beforehand. Now we're getting close to the end of this for both of these runners. Muncha, it looks like, is entering the last real substantial room of the stage. That can be difficult to navigate with those snow blocks that drop down on top of the spikes. It's definitely easy to accidentally land on the spikes and not trigger the snow blocks when you think you have gotten them to fall down. But fortunately, both of them getting through without a real problem. And Muncha is going to kill Polar Knight here, just as David's about to enter the fight. So we'll see what this time difference is like. I'd say it's about 15 seconds here separating Muncha and David as we go into Clockwork Tower. So unlike Stranded Ship, which is not too random of a level, Clockwork Tower is a pretty random level because of one enemy in particular, the sign daggers, which will fly out from either side of the screen at a random height and move up and down as they fly across the screen. They tend to like to spawn in pretty much the exact spot to kill you. Let's see, Muncha looks like he's going to need to grab some health in the next room, most likely. Gonna take that checkpoint for safety as well. Definitely a smart move. And he does grab the health also. So now in this room you see these sign daggers flying across, and you actually want to damage boost off the first one that comes out so that you can land on the spikes and get across the screen a little faster. Now this room that Muncha is in now can be very annoying to deal with depending on where these daggers decide to spawn. You see they slow him down a little bit but don't give him too much trouble. We'll see what happens with David. And he gets through just fine as well. Both Muncha and David navigating a lot of the challenging parts of this run very well so far. And now they're both in the first auto-scroller in Clockwork Tower. So they're just going to be pogoing these gold armors to knock them onto the spikes, get them out of the way, so that you can get through unimpeded once the platform reaches the end. Muncha taking another safety checkpoint, probably another smart move there. And David taking that checkpoint as well. Oh, he's low on health, but he's going to get to the health in this wall. Just have to be a little careful that his iframes didn't run out as he was getting through those mages. So now they're both in the final auto-scroller in Clockwork Tower. This one is not too bad to get through, at least once you're used to it. The only thing that tends to trip people up occasionally is the sign daggers at the very beginning, but not a problem here for either runner. Now the Tinker Knight fight, which Muncha is coming up on right now, has two phases. The first phase is actually the harder one. He's going to run around and throw wrenches at you, and then turn around and jump at various points. Can be a little difficult to react to, but it looks like Muncha's doing a pretty nice job of it. Actually doesn't take any damage from that fight, which is pretty impressive. And now the second phase, people have found some trickier strats to, optimize this perfectly, get a little bit of extra damage in. We'll see what kind of kill Muncha goes for. Yeah, he is going for some of those extra hits. but for the most part, you're just bouncing on Tinker Knight's head. So it's a little more straightforward. Now it looks like it's about a 10-second difference, still very close. Pretty late into the run. Only 4 stages left to go. So the next one is going to be Flying Machine, the final Order of No Quarter stage. And this one has a particularly annoying enemy in it, the Hover Meanies, or Jawas as we often call them, that will fly up to you and attempt to blow you backwards with the fans that they carry around, usually into a pit. You're also going to see a few damage boosts to get through these first few screens a little bit faster. And Munch is going to be coming up on not the first Jawa of the stage, but the first one that can really mess you up. And you see he's giving Muncha a bit of a hard time, just getting in his way. And they also do a full heart of damage on body contact, so you don't want to run into them either. So now the mini boss for this stage is the Dinghy Dropper. Looks like Munch is gonna... Oh, he... Looked like he was trying to go for a skip where you pogo off the Dinghy Dropper with the last hit and get up to that raised platform in the next screen. But he wasn't able to get the setup for it, so he just takes the health and moves on. David also taking the health, he's not far behind at all. And now they're coming up to the triple Jawa room. It's the only thing more fun than one Jawa is 3. Oh, and they're messing up Muncha a little bit there, but he does manage to survive and make his way through to the auto-scroller. See how David deals with this room. And he's able to use the cannonballs to get over just fine. Oh, and the auto-scroller Jawa kind of messing with Muncha. And also messing with David, actually. That guy giving both of them a hard time. And actually, he's knocking Muncha down to only 1 heart left, so he hopefully will be fine to get through the rest of the stage, but I'd imagine he would take the health right before Propeller Knight. Because Propeller's dash attacks will do a full heart and kill Muncha if he messes up that fight at all. Oh, and now he's got to drop down. He tried to go too soon, hoping that the fan cycle would cooperate, but it didn't. Now it's Muncha navigating the wind tunnel. Gets through the first screen pretty quickly. The second screen can be a bit scary, especially when you're just learning it. And now both Muncha and David getting through no problem, so they're going to be on to the propeller fight. This is a pretty technical quick kill. You're going to use some shovel cancels to damage him on the ground and then pogo up with him as he flies into the corner. And just kill him there. So Muncha getting the quick kill, David did not. So he's going to fall a bit farther behind here. And he's got to be careful he doesn't get knocked into a pit, but deals with it fine. So now we'll try to see just how much of a lead Muncha has at this point at the end of the third dream. Looks like his dream ends at about 35-43, so it is a bit of a deficit now that David has to overcome, but depending on a death that Muncha might take, that could be enough to bring it right back to even again. Looks like it's maybe close to 30 seconds. So now Tower 1 is going to throw a lot of mechanics that the game has shown you from the previous stages all together into one big stage. You see the book platforms here from Pridemore Keep. And they're going to be just a bunch of... and also the propeller rats, actually. We'll see what kind of pattern the Propeller Knights give Muncha, and they cooperate pretty well. So he's able to get through. Hopefully the rats will be nice to David as well. Not as nice in the first screen, but that's okay. It's all about this second screen. Looks like he'll be able to make it. Yeah. And meanwhile, Muncha is in the Crusher. There are a few difficult parts if you want to get through the Crusher as quickly as possible, but it's mostly a pretty consistent section for the runners of this level. Yep. Okay, David does make it through. It's a little worried that maybe he had started moving too late to make that Crusher cycle, but not a problem. And now at the very end of Tower 1, we see the Dark Rooms make a return. Not as much of a problem here. You can see where the platforms are by where the rain is falling, and there isn't anything that's completely blacked out like in Yard. But still just a little extra challenge you have to learn to deal with. But the real challenge of this section is this Jawa. Once she gets through it, no problem. And David will have to deal with him pretty shortly. Meanwhile, Muncha on the second Black Knight fight in this run. You can stun lock him just like you did back in Plains, all the way back in Plains, but it's much harder because now Black Knight has the ability to teleport out of the stun lock if you're not precise enough with your shovel swings. But Muncha getting the quick kill very nicely. We'll see if David can do the same. Black Knight getting a bit of a jump, but David able to get him back into the stun lock. Looks like he's got it. Yes, he does. So very good fight from Muncha and David there. And Muncha's going to be on his way to Tower 2. The platforming here is actually a little bit tricky in low percent. Because again, you just have the shovel, nothing else that the game thinks you might have here this far into the run. But the real challenge is going to be boss rush at the end of the stage. Interesting strat from Muncha there, doing some pogos to get through the slimes. Does get through pretty well. Now this room with the rainbow platform can be a little tricky, excuse me, partly because there are 2 more Jawas. Oh, and Muncha on very low health, so he cannot afford to take a hit here. Gets past the first Jawa. And hits the second one with the platform as well. So he'll be on to the auto-scroller before boss rush. He's actually got to be a little careful with these slimes. If they jump at you the wrong way, it is very possible to take damage there. Which of course would be a bit of a setback for Muncha, but I think he will be fine at this point. Yeah, something interesting about this auto-scroller, you can get stuck in some of these blocks if you jump into them before they come all the way on screen. It is actually helpful to basically jump through the blocks to get through to the end a little bit more safely, but you can't speed this auto-scroller up because you have to wait for it to get all the way to the top before you're able to move on. But Muncha able to get through without taking damage, fortunately, so he will be on his way to boss rush. Have to fight all 8 Order of No Quarter bosses in essentially a random order. The only non-random part is that Polar Knight has to be one of the first 3 bosses. Other than that, they can show up in any order, so you have to be ready for anything at any time. And now David's going to be starting boss rush as well. Oh, can he get Propeller Knight? Yes, does manage to get that kill before Propeller flies up to the corner. Very nice there from David. Now it's Plague for David and Spectre for Muncha. David looked like had a pretty decent start to the fight, and it's getting him down to low health now. Meanwhile, Munch is going to be bouncing Spectre Knight back and forth into that corner. Not quite able to finish him off that way, but does get a pretty reasonable kill. Yeah, definitely a close race. Less than a minute separating the runners, and they're really any death at this point could swing the race one way or another. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell exactly what the time difference is here just because the bosses are going to take different amounts of time, but we'll get a good feel for where they are once they both finish boss rush. Now Muncha in the Tinker refight. He can give you a lot of trouble just like he does in his original stage. But of course the second phase shouldn't be too much of a problem. So now David has Tinker and King left to fight. Muncha just finishing up Tinker. He has Propeller and King left. So because Tinker's a pretty long boss because of the 2 phases, Muncha's still going to be in the lead. But it's been a close race the whole way through. Really exciting to watch, for sure. And it actually works out that they both kill King Knight at a pretty similar time. Now Munch is done with boss rush there. David just has the second phase of Tinker Knight left, and he'll be on his way to the final stage as well. Oh, but he almost gets knocked off of Tinker Knight's head there. Does land on a platform, which is nice, helps him get back up a little bit quicker. At this point, it shouldn't be a problem to finish off this fight for David. Muncha in the final stage, there are a couple tricky tile rooms to get through. First one is going to involve the tiles on screen just shooting at you. And you pretty much can just stand on this platform that Munch is standing on and jump occasionally to get through, no problem. And now you've got to deal with the tiles only popping up from the floor when you get close to them, so you have to kind of know the layout of the room here to know where and when to jump. But Muncha gets through, so he's on his way to the Enchantress fight. So the goal for Enchantress is to get her down to 6 hits left by the end of her diving phase, so that you can get underneath the stage and finish her off there. Muncha doing plenty of damage, actually coming somewhat close to killing her during the dives, and he gets the quick kill on Enchantress. So he's only got one boss left to complete this run. David, meanwhile, just heading towards the first Enchantress phase now. We're heading towards... And now Munch is going to be fighting the Remnant of Fate, the final boss of the game. Ooh, David not quite doing enough damage. We'll see what he does to try to get a little more damage in. Tries to reflect a projectile back at Enchantress, but isn't able to land that hit. Muncha getting a good pattern from Shield Knight, so he might be able to finish this fight off a little bit quicker than normal. And he's done a 48-33 from Muncha. Very strong performance. And David is not going to finish too far behind. He's just finishing Enchantress now, and he'll be coming up on Remnant of Fate soon. Now here for Remnant of Fate, you need to get 8 hits in this first phase of Shield Knight jumping up, and that will trigger the this phase where the boss drops to the ground, which is the fastest way to finish her off. Oh, he might not get this, but oh, he does. A 49-41 for David as the final time. That's only 7 seconds off his PB, so not enough to win the race, but a very strong run from David as well. Yeah, great race. It was close right up to the end. Great job for both runners getting a sub 50 run.
Hello, I am David.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Nice run.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take 6 seconds above PB. Like, that's pretty good in a race.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think. I think you had maybe a couple early deaths, but overall, solid performance. You kept it close the whole time.
That's good. That's all I can ask for. GG, Muncha.
Aha, there we go. GG. I died to Plague Knight.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Yeah, I died once in exploded Torian, and then I messed up in Lost City right after the checkpoint. But like, I was.
Oh yeah.
I was 13 seconds ahead of PB going into Tower 3, and then I flubbed the Enchantress fight.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but still, definitely GG to both of you. So, Muncha winning that race, you'll be moving on. Looks like we've got a bit of a wait to see just who your opponent will be in the next match, but
my guess is it's Patois.
Yeah, it sure seems like it's. It seems like that's what it's building towards. He's been doing very well in his runs recently.
I gotta practice harder.
Yeah, Pat was not gonna pull any punches.
No.
Oh yeah.
My pride is on the line. Oh well, at least my name's in the credits. Anyway, that was fun.
I was sweating the whole time. I was kind of nervous.
I am always nervous when I race, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to deal with it mentally, but I think both of you did a great job. Solid runs all around, so definitely good work.
Yeah. What's coming up next on Speed Gaming?
Let's see. So, looks like the next thing is Ori Randomizer at 6 a.m.
Need
some morning Ori. But I don't see anything on the schedule immediately after this.
Alright, well, next up to the Speed Gaming crew for having us as always.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I did not expect to get sub 50 during this tournament, let alone this race.
You did it.
I did it. I'm free.
You're never free from Shovel Knight.
Nah, I gotta go back to any percent now.
Exactly. Well, I'm gonna sign off. Good night, everybody. Thanks for hosting Primeworks.
Yep, no problem. Thank you for the race. It was definitely great to watch. So, yeah, that's it for us. I'm Primeworks. Thank you, everyone on Speed Gaming, for watching the Shovel Knight race. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you around.
Bye-bye.